The United Conservative government ousting its AHS, Alberta Health Services CEO, Athana Mentzelopoulos, amid a probe into medical contracts. This, in theory, could be, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
This story of the allegations of concern at AHS actually stretches back as far back as 2022 that we know of, tied to the deal to import children's medication from Turkey. Then it's tied into the man involved in that company giving luxury box seat tickets to members of this government, to cabinet ministers. And then for a long time, there's been talk in medical circles and in political circles about how the chartered surgical facilities, those private places that we can receive public health care operations paid for by the government, that some of those contracts were worth more than their competitors, that maybe they weren't all priced the same or within the same sphere. That has been building and building. And then we saw at the beginning of January, the government dismissed the CEO of AHS, who had a 4-year contract. And then at the end of January, the board was dismissed. Through this, I think reporters have been hearing people with concerns. And then the letter came out. The CEO, her lawyer, had written a letter to AHS, basically part of her severance negotiation. She's saying, what you've offered me isn't good enough. I think you fired me because I was investigating things within AHS. So she details some of her investigatory findings in that letter, and that's what's set off this firestorm. So in her letter, she notes that the Auditor General was informed of her investigations. There's a few investigations that she had launched, but she was about 2 days away from meeting with him. And she has said that she was fired, the government not using quite that language. What she notes is that her contract was 4 years and she'd only completed 1 year of it. And the government's, sort of making an argument that this was part of a natural transition, that they're disputing that. Noting that she was 2 days away from meeting with the Auditor General to go over her findings is something that's quite explosive. The letter also notes that the board, the AHS board, had recommended to her that she take her investigatory findings to the RCMP.
A big part of that January 20th letter is the allegation that the former CEO was pressured by senior government officials, including the Premier's former Chief of Staff, Marshall Smith, to sign off on approving chartered surgical facilities, in particular with the group, the Alberta Surgical Group.
During the stretch that the former CEO was there were multiple deals that, she argues that she was in charge of negotiating. One is an extension with the Alberta Surgical Group. To be clear, it is part of the public healthcare system. Also to negotiate deals for new facilities in Red Deer and Lethbridge. She alleges that Mr. Smith, who's not related to the Premier, and other government officials had been putting pressure on her to rush those deals, get them signed. She details receiving phone calls from Marshall Smith regarding Alberta Surgical Group. She was worried that the Premier's office might be trying to influence or pressure decisions at AHS. Her second concern was she found the contracts for Alberta Surgical Group too pricey. She was worried about not doing proper due diligence, especially when she alleged some of the proprietors might be connected to circles of political influence. Now this is bringing in allegations that question whether or not the government was working on behalf of some private companies.
The Premier issuing a statement on X, formerly known as Twitter, quote, says the Premier, I have read various media stories containing allegations regarding the procurement and contracting processes of AHS. They're troubling allegations, should be reviewed as quickly as possible. Premier says she'll be writing the Auditor General to ask for an expedited review, says I've directed my officials to ensure any request for information from the Auditor General is dealt with on a transparent and expedited basis. Says we need to get to the bottom of this issue quickly. She's asking that an internal review of AHS be completed as quickly as possible. Says she wants it delivered directly to her so she can study the results and make improvements. Says until the findings are delivered, AHS has paused contracting for surgical facilities under review. Quote, as Premier, I was not involved in any wrongdoing. Any insinuation to the contrary is false, baseless, and defamatory.
She does not say I didn't know about the allegations. The former CEO alleges that she had informed top people in the Premier's office of her findings, of her investigations. The health minister, she alleges, was also involved. Difference between her statement and the Auditor General statement is the Auditor General says he's investigating AHS and Alberta Health. The Premier's statement does not address whether or not she'll look into procurement at Alberta Health. In the former CEO's letter, part of what her allegations hinge on is that it was Alberta Health that was also putting forward procurement contracts that she wasn't comfortable with. In general, what this government has done, it has twice fired the entire board of AHS. It installed an official administrator, Dr. Cowell, replaced him with the former CEO, terminated her, and replaced her with the Deputy Minister of Health.
Where do you rank this if all of this proves to be true? Is this, I mean, that's what brought Alison Redford's government down.
Danielle Smith's and her government have been very successful at surviving things that would significantly dent previous governments. It's really hard to tell, and there's so much going on right now. Alison Redford, she didn't have the same connection with people that Premier Smith has, and I think that goes a long way with Premier Smith, that she has a network across the province. People rally behind her and adore her, and Premier Redford did not have that. One of the differences in this, though, is that was right on Alison Redford. It was Alison Redford did this. These allegations are not Danielle Smith did this. It is her government. It's people within her office. The opposition leader argues she ought to have known, and if she didn't know, that makes her incompetent. But there's room where you can see where people would be forgiving to Premier Smith. Comparing one against the other, especially how dramatically our politics and the way that we react to our politics has changed, I think is really difficult. One of the next big developments will be this week. There's a cabinet meeting tomorrow. How the ministers deal with this amongst themselves and what they decide to do and how they come out of this is going to be really significant. This does seem to be one that they can't just ride out. It hasn't gone away yet, and I don't think it's going away soon.